Good morning, everyone. This is Karen Whooley, and welcome back to Team Whooleygan Live Chat. I'm really excited that you're all here. But before I get over to the chat room, I just wanted to say welcome to all of you who are following me today and watching live on Facebook. I'm streaming simultaneously to YouTube and Facebook today. So I thought I'd just give a shout out to all the new people watching on Facebook. Before I get started, I just wanted to give you some information. Make sure if you're watching on YouTube, you hit the subscribe button down here at the bottom. If you are watching on Facebook and do not like my page, make sure you hit the like button on my page as well and follow that page, because I'll be posting on my Facebook page a lot of articles and things like that, so, as well as all my other social media feeds. If you are watching after the fact, make sure you hit subscribe so that you know the next time I go live. And then if you're watching this on Rumble, make sure you hit the subscribe button above this post, and you'll be able to be notified when I have a new video uploaded to the platform. If you want to learn more about me, you can go to my website here at KarenWhooley.com. It's spelled W-H-O-O-L-E-Y. A lot of people want to call it Whooley, and it's really Whooley. So make sure you check out my website. And if you aren't already, make sure you subscribe to my newsletter. Again, I have a link right down there for you. If you're a newsletter subscriber, you automatically get 25% all new pattern releases. Plus, you're the first to know all of the news that is happening over at KarenWhooley.com and Karen Whooley Designs. So make sure you hit that subscribe, and you'll automatically get a free pattern right off the bat. And one thing I do want to let you know, I'll be talking about it in the future of this or later on in this broadcast, but I have a new book coming out on Tuesday, and I have a special coupon code for my subscribers, and I'm not going to share what that is. You'll have to find out on Tuesday when you get the newsletter about the book being released. So if you're interested in getting a good deal, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Also, if you want to follow me here on YouTube, or if you want to follow me on YouTube and you're watching this somewhere else, here is my YouTube channel link. It's my URL/YouTube with the Y and the T capitalized. So make sure you have hit that subscribe button, and also hit the like button while you're there, so that on this particular video, so that other people know, and it'll be brought up into other posts. If you want to follow me on Facebook, here is my Facebook link. If you're not watching on Facebook, if you're watching on Facebook, you're already there. If you're not watching on Facebook, that is the link to follow me on Facebook. So make sure you like my page and follow me there to get some of the news as well. Where I am most active is on Instagram. So if you're interested in following me on Instagram, that right there is my handle, Karen Whooley with no spaces. So make sure you follow me there as well. And for those of you, I mentioned Rumble earlier. If you want to see my Rumble channel, this is my Rumble channel right here. You can follow me there as well as here on YouTube or Facebook and Instagram. And then if you've never heard of Rumble and you're interested in trying it out, I do have an affiliate link, and you can look at that right here as well to register there. And it's an affiliate link, so it doesn't cost you anything to join Rumble, but I do get a little bit for recommending Rumble. So make sure you check that out. And I'm going to go over to, boy, you guys are chatty this morning, over into the comments and see how you guys are doing. Over on YouTube, I have Linda and Brad. I'm glad you guys are here. Good morning. Let's see. I've got the busy hooker. Good morning. I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you smashed that like button. Awesome. I appreciate it. And Patricia's here. Good morning. How you feeling these days, Patricia? Your femur, I'm hoping is still healing well. So I'm glad you're here. And I have, the big busy hooker just said hello again. Aunt Ida said, hi, y'all. Good morning. It's good to see you, Aunt Ida. And counting sheep at Sunrise Hill Farm. That is Ruth. And good morning, Ruth. I'm glad you're here. Seems like everybody is here on YouTube. Nobody's on Facebook, but that's okay. I'm sure I'll get some Facebook people coming in. I just got a like on Facebook. So hopefully whoever's on Facebook, come in and say hello. Kelly, this is my cousin. Just had to come on and see one of my favorite people. Hi, Kelly. It's so good to have you here. Thanks for popping in. And here's Dawn. Good morning, Dawn. Good to see you. And Pat, you're healing. Good. I'm glad. Still doing good. So that's awesome. I'm glad you're here. And Ruth, thank you for being here. I appreciate that. So I'm going to get started a little bit here. I don't have a whole lot of new stuff to show you this week. The one thing I can show you, though, is I did finish, and you probably noticed already, is I finished my cowl that I've been working on. This is, remember, I was working on this cowl a couple weeks ago, and last week I told you it was on the blocking board. Well, it's now finished and blocked. I'm going to take it off here for a sec so you can see it. I just did a really simple single crochet edge on it because I wanted the lace to stand out. This is the one that is made out of, I'm going to put her link up here, the Serial Knitters Underground. It's her Cherry Creek sock yarn in the colorway Lights. And this colorway is no longer being dyed. The other cowl is being dyed on Flower Girl. That's called Flower Girl, I should say. And that is on its way to the photographer. So I can't show you that one. I will be holding a test for this cowl. So if you're interested in being a pattern tester, let me know. I want to show you guys. Here's the Flower Girl. I've got an extra skein of it here, and I'll probably do a giveaway with this extra skein when I launch the pattern. But I wanted to let you know that I did finish it. I'm really excited. I still got to go to Tech Edit before I actually do a test. I always like to have the charts and the schematics and all that done and have it Tech Edited before I do a test. So it'll be a few weeks, but I wanted to wear mine because I really like how it turned out. So that's done. And then I have been working on, I think I showed you last week, my sweater with the fiber seed. Sprout Sock is the yarn that I'm using. I'm still working on the back. I had to rip some stuff out and restart it, but the back's almost done. All I've got to do is the neck, the back, leave the opening for the neck and do the two sides for the back. It is a cropped sweater. So it's going to look a little shorter, and it's not my size. So it looks a little small when I'm putting it on myself, but I am working on that as well. But that's all I've got as far as projects are concerned. I haven't gotten anything new in the studio. So there's that too. So I just noticed I have a comment over here. I'd love to test crochet patterns for you. Just let me know how, where to get touch. Okay, so to test patterns for me, if you go to my website, and I'll put my website back up here. You go to my website and you scroll all the way down to the bottom where the footer is, you'll see something that says be a pattern tester. And if you go there to be a pattern tester, it gives you all the information of what I'm expecting of my pattern testers. And there's a link at the bottom to join my testing pool, in which I use Yarn Pond for my testing pool. It is, it's free for testers, but I pay a little bit to them to host my pattern tests. And Ruth is it Ruth? No, Dawn is actually testing for me right now a pattern on there. And if Ruth wants to, or not Ruth, Dawn wants to just mention how it's been for her testing on Yarn Pond, or anybody else that might be here that has tested for me on Yarn Pond. Gladly in the chat, just let people know what that what that's like. But I am looking for testers. So I mean, I have a testing pool. I'll be putting some more patterns up. I got another shawl that'll be going up and stuff like that. So let me know if you're interested and be watching for tests, because what's really cool about Yarn Pond is that I can notify you that I have a test, and it'll automatically notify you that I have a test going. So check it out. That helps. Anybody else have any questions before I move on? I'm talking really fast today. It feels like it's been an interesting morning for me. I've been up since 4:30, so that's what, almost 5 hours now. So it's definitely it's been a weird morning. Let's see. Ruth says, I like the Yarn Pond platform. Yes, I do too. I really, it's worth the cost to me. It's a nominal cost to create the tests up there, but it saves me so much time, and I don't have to worry about hackers like I had on my old website. So I've done several patterns now on there. Three, I can't remember. But yeah, it's really pretty awesome. So, okay, so I am going to show you, I mentioned earlier that I was going to talk about this, and on Tuesday I have a new book coming out. I've shown you guys this before, Simply Blankets. Again, it's 6 full-size blanket patterns. There's one there. There's actually 4 on the front cover, and there's 2 more inside. Let me find the other 2. That one's already shown. Here's one. This is one. There's that one. And this is printed. They're ebooks only, so it's kind of hard to show you. That's that one on the cover. And then this is the 6th one. Because they're ebooks only and I printed this, they're kind of faded on screen. But this is really, really a fun book for me to re-release, actually. It used to be called Simply Afghans. We've kind of gone away from calling them Afghans, and they are now blankets. But the original book was published in 2002, and it's been off the market for years as a book format. I had the patterns individually for a little bit, but they just, I guess because I didn't have charts and stuff, that a lot of people didn't want to buy the patterns. So this pattern book now has charts for all of the designs. Some of them are color coded. I like this one. I'm going to show you if I can get it. Where my tech editor did some really cool color work, so you can see where the color changes are. It's 36 pages, and it's $4.99. You can buy it on my website as of next Tuesday. Tuesday it'll be released. If you're on my newsletter, you will get the release. It is up for pre-sale on Amazon, Kobo, Apple, and several other platforms. If you go to my website and you go to the news section, there's a tab at the top that says news. It should be the first post that you see there that talks about this book and all the places it's up for pre-sale. It won't be up for pre-sale on my website it won't be up for sale at all on my website until Tuesday. And just so you guys know, there is a special coupon code for newsletter subscribers. I'm not going to tell you what it is. It's not a discount on this book, but it's got to do with the other book this is the second in the series. The first in the series is Simply Baby Blankets. Sorry. I'm so used to calling it Simply Afghans and Simply Baby Afghans that I forget. But it's a series. So there's Simply Baby Blankets, and now Simply Blankets is coming. And then hopefully sometime next year, I'll have the 3rd book out. I'll talk about that in the future. I have to figure out if I need to remake those models or not. For these 2 books, I didn't have to remake the samples, so they're going. But I wanted to let you guys know about that as well. So anybody have any questions for me before I get started? I'm going to do a little mini lesson on seaming. But I want to just, I know a lot of times you guys come here and you want to ask me a question or have a comment about something we've talked about before. So I'm going to give you a minute or two here to ask me any questions or comments, and I'm going to take a sip of coffee. My throat has been so dry, so I need some coffee here. No questions. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead right into the seaming. I want to show you, I should have left this off. When I showed you this cowl originally, it was flat. And I told you I was going to seam it on the back. Now here's the inside of the cowl. And there is the seam. Can you see the seam there? This thick thing. This is called the mattress stitch. And this is what the inside of the mattress stitch looks like. Okay, I want you to see that first. And then I'm going to turn it around, and there is the mattress stitch on the opposite side. Can you see the seam? Can anybody see the seam? It's kind of difficult to see. And that's why I used the mattress stitch on this. One is because I didn't want the seam to sag. And number two is because it hides itself really well. Can you guys see that? I don't know if you can or not. So anyway, get that back on here. So I wanted to show you guys how I do the mattress stitch. And I have a second camera here that I am going to make live here, and my face will disappear for a little bit. And I'm going to show you how I do the mattress stitch. Now, before I switch over the camera, I want you to know that I have done like just little strips of single crochet just to do this. So there's really not a right or a wrong side. So when I talk about the right side, it's the side that you're seeing is the right side, and the wrong side is what you're not seeing. Okay, just to clarify that. So I'm going to switch over to the other camera. I want to make sure you guys can hear me. Can you hear me? Because I don't have my sound on my other camera, on my camera up here. I only have it my face camera sound on. So can someone just tell me yes or no if you can hear me? Hello? Am I talking to myself? Yes, cool. Okay, perfect. So if you watched last week, when I was talking about the mattress stitch, I was saying that you could use a different color and you wouldn't see the seam. So that's what I decided to do here for this demonstration, is I'm going to use blue to seam on the yellow swatches here. So the first thing I do when I do mattress stitch, sometimes I'll have a long enough tail like I did on my cowl to seam up. But in this case, I want to show you like when I'm doing sweaters, how I do it. Because it's basically the same thing, except you're going to have a tail that makes things a little bit easier. So when you cut your yarn to seam, what I usually do is I measure it against the seam I'm gonna do. So I do 3 times the length of the seam. You see how I did that? It goes up and down and then back up. And then I cut it. I always cut a little extra too. It's just, when I worked in a yarn shop and I taught classes there, I always told everyone that I'm in the business of selling yarn as a designer because I always use a little more than I need. Okay, so then you thread your needle with the yarn. And then I always start on the right side, probably because I'm right-handed. But if you're like, it doesn't matter which side you start on. But what I do first is I start with the right sides facing me, wrong sides away from me. And I start in the bottom corner. Now, in this case, I'm putting the tops of the stitches. I don't know if you guys can see that when it's so far away, but I'm using the actual single crochet, the tops of the single crochets together, because it's easier for me to actually show you, because I have big holes, and I used a bigger than normal hook to create these swatches. So I wanted to make sure that you could see what I was doing. So anyway, I start on the right hand side in the very first stitch, and I go from the wrong side to the right side, and I'm going to go through the first hole here. That's actually a stitch. Can you see that right there where my needle's coming through? That's actually the top of a stitch I'm going through. And I pull that through and I leave a bit of a tail. So I'm going to leave, 3 inches there for a tail. Then I go to the other side and I go from underneath. There we go. And through that stitch as well from underneath. And I try to pull it through so that it's not catching the tail and that it's not like, see how right here it's starting to want to catch the edge of the fabric. I'm just going to move that so that it's not catching the edge of the fabric. So I'm going to bring that up here so you can kind of see. Here's the tail. My finger's kind of wiggling that tail. Oops, there we go. And I'm coming up, and then it's going back underneath and coming up. So that's how that first stitch works. Now, let's keep going. Okay, so I'm going to do it down here, and then I'll bring it up closer. But what I do is I go back. So I'm on the left side now. I'm going to go back to the right side. And I'm going to go down through the fabric in the same hole that the blue is coming up through. You see that? I don't know if you can from this distance. And then I go into the next stitch and I come from the bottom up. So as I bring it closer here, the needle's going through the same hole as this going down. It's going down and it's coming up through the next stitch. And then I pull that through and I make sure that the tail is not caught again. Now, if you notice that I'm keeping the space between the two pieces of fabric big, and there's a reason for that. You'll see that in just a minute. So now I've done the right side. Now it's time to do the left side. So I'm going down through the same stitch. And when you're going down through the same stitch, you want to make sure you don't split the yarn that's coming out. So I'm not trying not to split this the blue yarn that's going through that stitch. So I go down, and then I'm coming up through the next stitch and up. Okay, same thing. Make sure the tail doesn't get caught, and it's easy to do. And then I go back to the right side, and now I go back through the stitch that I came out of. So that's stitch number 2, and I come up through stitch number 3. And then I go back to the left side and do the same thing, down through stitch 2 and up through stitch 3. Now I usually do that 4 stitches. So I'm going to do one more on either side. 1 and up and down. Oops, and I need to adjust my tail here. And then I go down and up. Can you guys see that so far? Is that okay? Is that making sense? What I'm doing here? Can you see how it kind of zigzags back and forth? And there's a big space there now. And usually I try to make sure that I do the same number. So if I did 4 stitches on this side, I do 4 stitches on this side. So I'm always starting on the right side and ending on the left. So I do 4 stitches. Now I'm going to tighten up the seam. Okay. To tighten up the seam, you want to pull the tail and the working yarn. I call the working yarn where the needle's coming from. Okay. And I pull that. And see how the blue disappears, other than the tails and the working yarn? See how that works? So there's a seam. Now I'm not going to show you the back side just quite yet, because I want to keep going with how I continue. So now, as I get closer, you can kind of pull apart that first stitch and see where the last blue came out of the right-hand side. So I go through that again. And so that was stitch 4. I'm coming out of stitch 5. And then into stitch 4 on the left. And out 5. So I'm going to do 4 more of these. And if you have questions while I'm doing this, just put them in the chat and I will try to answer them as I'm doing this. Now, don't be worried if see, like right now, the previous stitches are starting to get white again. That's okay. That's going to be fixed next time I pull the yarn. Do 1 more on each side. And sometimes when I'm doing lace weight yarn, if I'm sewing up the lace weight yarns, I will do more than 4 stitches. But I figured this is just easy to show you. So now I'm going to pull again. And the blue is gone. Isn't that cool? Okay, so now I'm going to show you the opposite side just so you can see what's happening. So when you turn over the opposite side, the tops of the stitches are making this kind of a bulky seam. Now, most things you're probably not going to want this bulky of a seam. And you'll see here, even here, the blue is kind of hidden. You see a little bit of it, but it's not as bad as you would think it would be. The reason you want to use the mattress stitch for things like garments, there's a couple reasons. The first is it gives stability. I'm going to put my face in here so you can see me. It gives you stability right here, and especially in the underarms. If you're going to use any other kind of seam on a garment, the one thing I'm going to say is make sure you use mattress stitch in the curve of the arm and where it goes down into the body of the sweater. Because that is where, especially if you've got a fitted garment that's got no ease in it, so that's really form-fitting, it's going to give you the stability so that as you move your arm, you're not going to stretch your seam out. It's not going to... you won't bust a seam. I've had sweaters in my teenage years that I bought at a store. Now, granted, they're probably not as well made as something that I would make myself. But if I pulled my arm up too fast or it was too tight, it would pop a hole in my underarm. If it would have had a mattress stitch type of a seam, it probably wouldn't have done that. But the stability in your seams, the one thing about knitted and crocheted fabrics is that depending on what type of yarn you're using, you're going to have, stretch. Yarn weighs, especially cottons, and it's going to the gravity's going to pull it down. And by adding the mattress stitch at your seams here, especially down the sides and in the arms, it prevents that stretch. It's not going to completely wipe it out, but it's going to prevent it from happening. It's going to be something that when you go and wash your sweater and you reblock it or just lay it out to shape, you're able to use the seam as straightening the hems, straightening where the sleeves are supposed to be. So that's why you want to use the mattress stitch. So now I'm going to just go back to what I'm doing here. And I'm going to flip it back over and we're going to finish the seam up for you. So in and out. I'm going to try to bring it closer so you can see. In and out. I love this seam. This is my favorite seam. It is time consuming. It uses a lot of yarn. I know that. Again, I always say I'm in the business of selling yarn as well as designing patterns, but it's worth it. I mean, I've had tunics that are 30 inches long and I've seamed them up like this, and it's taken me over an hour to do one seam. And I lost my thread here, but man, when it was done, it was beautiful and it did not stretch out. So And what I like about it too is depending on the stitch you're using, where you're going to seam it, it's almost invisible to the point of, it's almost invisible to the point of, you can't tell where the seam is. Like, I think I showed you my favorite hat last week. You couldn't see where the seam started and ended. And if you really look here, it looks like almost, I mean, there's a little bit of a gap there, but it almost looks as if the fabric was all one piece as I'm doing that. So, I mean, to the person who doesn't know how crochet stitches are, they might not notice that there is a seam there until they turn it inside out. That's what I really love about Mattress Stitch. And I lost the tail again. Okay, one more on either side. And then I can pull on it again. Okay, so I've done all of the stitches on both sides, and I've got a loop here that's coming out. I cut, instead of weaving in the ends, I cut the ends. So this one's actually coming out, but that's okay. For a swatch purpose, that's not going to be a problem. Okay, so these swatches were not blocked either, so the edge is going to be a little off. And even when you're sewing a sweater, sometimes the edge does have this little bit of a triangle up here. And the way you fix that, now you're going to see it because of the blue. But the way you fix that is you go back through the hole, the last hole you did, and then you pull it through and you come back up. And then go back down one more time. And see how it kind of cinches up that edge. Now here, because I'm using blue, you're going to see it. But normally if I was using yellow, it wouldn't show. And then when you weave in your ends, you'll see here the blue, because I did a couple loops through, it's got a little, so it kind of cinches everything here together. And then when you're going to end off, you just weave in your ends through that seam back and forth. Oops, sorry guys, I just moved the camera. Back and forth to weave in your end, and then you're done. And then you do exactly the same thing on this end, where you put this tail on your needle and you go around a couple times and then weave through this end. So that is the Mattress Stitch. What do you guys think? Anybody have any comments, questions on the Mattress Stitch? I'm gonna grab some coffee here really fast. Kind of cool, huh? I love how it hides the seam. I'm going to pull my favorite hat here really fast. Okay, so my favorite hat. Here's the inside seam, right? Pretty bulky. Here's the seam on the outside. You can hardly see it, can't you? Right here. And then again, let me pull the cowl back out. I'm going to move my scissors and everything. There's the seam in the inside of the cowl. And there's the seam on the outside of the cowl. Now, the only way you can really tell the seam in the cowl is because I started and ended with single crochet. And it's going to look a little different right here than it does with the chain stitches on either side. But it's hidden enough that it's going to be in the back of your cowl anyway that you're not going to see it. So let me put up some of your comments here. So, wow, and fascinating. And Pat says, awesome. And Brat's mom, Liz says, I like it and it looks easy enough. It is really easy. A lot of people get intimidated by the Let me put this back on and put myself back up. A lot of people get intimidated with the mattress stitch. When they see that, they think, oh, that's a knitting technique. It is a knitting technique that crocheters can use. I mean, I wouldn't call it a knitting technique at all. I mean, knitters use it more than crocheters do, but it's not a knitting technique. So make sure that you try it out. Just, crochet up a couple swatches. Now, the other thing too is that you don't have to do it like when you're doing a sweater. Actually, you know what? I'm going to put the sweater I'm working on right now. Okay, I'm going to put this back down. And okay, so this is the sweater I'm working on right now. And this is the bottom down here, and here's the top. When I put the fronts on, I'm going to be going up the sides of rows rather than the tops of stitches. And I have an extra stitch right here. Oops, can't hardly see it. An extra stitch at the end of every double crochet row, because these are double crochets and then there's a row of single crochet. So when I work the mattress stitch as I'm seaming here, I am going to have the right sides facing me. And what I'm going to be doing is actually, instead of working in the tops of stitches, I'm going to be working through the middle of the stitch. So I probably would go in here. Actually, let me use my needle. That would probably be easier to do it. So I would be going, so I'd have this thread coming through here, but then when I do my next stitch, I'd go down through here and then I'd come up through a hole in the middle of the stitch. Do you see what I just did there? I don't know if you guys can see that, but instead of, here's the first stitch, I'd come out, so the yarn is coming out this way. So then I would go back in and then through the middle of the stitch, right above it, because that's a double crochet. But then once I came through this way, then I would come down through the same point that I brought the stitch through, and then I'd come up through the single crochet. And I'd want to do that because double crochets are double the height of a single crochet. So I want to split the double crochet and then go into the single, and then split the double crochet and then go into the single, that kind of thing. So that both sides, because both sides will have the same number of rows, and I want to do it evenly so that when it's all seamed up, these V-stitch rows are going to line up on both sides of the seam. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. So any questions? So love that color. Brad's mom, Linda, is this, you're talking about the sweater? I love this color too. I can't wait for the rest of the sweater. Hopefully by next week, I'll have the fronts done and I can show you guys, if it's not on the blocking board, I can show you guys what the sweater is going to end up looking like. And then you said, I wish I knew this years ago. You know, it took me a lot of years to learn this. I always did whip stitch, and I can show you really quick what a whip stitch is. I have a couple more swatches here. Whip stitch, and you probably all know this one. Yay, I'm glad you're learning, Busy Hooker. That's why I do these every once in a while, because I want to teach you guys how to do this. Okay, so I still do 3 for whip stitch. 3 times the length and plus a little extra. So, but for whip stitch, I usually do right sides together as well. And the way I do it, or actually wrong sides together, is usually how I do it. And I put the stitches so that they're together like this. And then I go through both pieces of fabric. I usually go back to front. That's just the way I do it. You can go front to back too. But if you start back to front, you keep going back to front. So I start with the first stitch, and then I go to the next set of stitches and try not to get the tail caught. That's the hard part. Hang on, let me make sure I've got the right tail, not caught there. Okay, and then what you want to do with whip stitch is you want to make sure you don't pull too tight, because then you make the fabric kind of cinch up. So you want to keep it as loose as possible, but you always go the same direction. That's why they call it whip stitch, is it's just, you're just whipping through. Oops, and I moved the camera again, I apologize. Now, this is something I use on granny squares and Afghans, and I apologize for keep hitting the camera, but this is something I use just to quickly seam something. I used to use this all the time on granny square Afghans, or blankets, or whatever you want to call them these days. But what's nice is I made all of these 15 stitches, so you could just whip stitch together really fast. Okay, and then I get to the last one right here. Okay, and then to end it off, you want to whip stitch through that last stitch at least once more. And then what I do is I open things up and I stick the needle back through, because remember, I'm looking at the right side. This is the right side. The wrong side is where I would weave the tail in. And then I do the same thing here, as I take the remaining tail on the beginning end and I would put it through once more and then through. But see, the thing is that if you're using a whip stitch, even if in the same color, you're going to see it, and there's a noticeable difference between the seam and the stitches. So there you go. Okay, so Aunt Ida says, so in any pattern, you would have to have a salvage stitch so as not to make it smaller. Yes and no. Some people don't add a salvage stitch because well, how do I explain this? I guess I would call it a salvage stitch, but sometimes it's just an extra stitch that you need, like in this sweater where I have this extra stitch that even if I sew it together, I'm going to be able to block it so that it stretches a little bit more and I don't lose the size. Some people will add a second stitch here to do the seaming in. I don't always do that because it seems like it takes a lot of fabric to do the mattress stitch. But it doesn't, I mean, it really doesn't, because you're going to block it later anyway. So it's, you know, it takes a little bit, but it doesn't always take that much. And then Aunt Ida also, or the Busy Hooker says, I don't do many projects that require sewing pieces together. Was the whip stitch, and I never liked the way it looked. Yep. And that's why I was determined to learn the mattress stitch. And then when I learned it, I was like, why didn't I learn this a long time ago? It's so easy to do. I mean, there are going to be times where the mattress stitch may not be as beautiful as you see here and as in here, as I showed you in the hat. Let me move this guy out of the way. It may not be as gorgeous as, I mean, you can kind of see the seam, but not really. It doesn't show up in the pattern itself. It looks pretty much as if it was just continuous. There are times the mattress stitch doesn't quite match up. But if you look at my books, if you have my books, Coastal Crochet, Pineapple Passion, and Modern Italian Lace Crochet, all three of those books have mattress stitched garments in there. I don't do very many all one piece garments anymore because of the structure. It's kind of something that you learn from sewing. Because my mom is a seamstress and my aunt was a seamstress. Oops, I'm gonna hide that here. And And I learned that sometimes you need a hard seam like the Mattress Stitch to prevent fabric from draping funny or stretching out. And that's really the case in crocheted garments. So Mattress Stitch is absolutely my favorite way of seaming. There's one other way I usually seam, and it's mostly for blankets, and it's because I want a visible textured type of seam, and it's with a crochet hook. And I'm going to do that one really quick too, just so you guys can see it. Okay, so in this case, again, I do wrong sides together, and I want to make sure I get these wrong sides together here. In this case, they're not really wrong sides, but this is how I do it. Okay, and I do a slip stitch seam, and I've done this for blankets as well. And this is, I've seen this done though on garments, so that maybe with a different color coming up the side seam, and it's really kind of cool when that happens. But to do it is basically you put a slip knot on your hook, then go through both pieces of fabric, and I go through the, both loops of the hook, and then yarn over and slip stitch. And then I do that again here. Yarn over and slip stitch. Yarn over, slip stitch. And I want to go all the way to the end and then before I open it up. And some people do crochet stitches too. I mean, crochet stitches, single crochet stitches for this too. I just don't like how much extra bulky fabric that gives you. Let me just. What I do like about this is if the two pieces of fabric are a little bit different, as long as they have the same number of stitches, and you don't have to have the same number of stitches, but if they do have the same number of stitches, it kind of cinches everything together and makes them both the same size. So now I've gone all the way across, slip stitch, and then you just end like normal with a fasten off knot, and then you open it up. And you can do this on the wrong side to give you a thicker seam. But what I don't like is that if you do that on the wrong side, there's your blue stitches. And again, with the if even with yellow, you would see that there's something going on there in the middle of the seam. I usually use it for granny squares to give it some interest on the top where they're joined together. Does that make sense? Or square blocks or blanket blocks, or if I'm doing blanket strips and I'm not crocheting them together, like mile a minute. I don't know how many of you know what I mean by mile a minute. I'll do that just to give some extra texture here. What I do like about it, if you're using the same color, this would be yellow, and you wouldn't see anything other than where I have these two tops of the stitches that I slip stitched into. You get like kind of almost like a stockinette rib coming down the middle here. I don't know if you can see that. I'll turn it this way. Might be better. You see how they're matched up. And this blue would be yellow if I did it. And then when you weave in your ends, in this case, if you want the seam to be seen, you'd weave your ends in on the back side. But if you don't want the seam to be seen, you'd weave it in the same side that you have the ridge. And what's nice about this one is it gives you a little bit of stretch. So for like a blanket, it'll still allow you to block it if you want to block it, or if you wet it and press it out, that would be another way to do it. So there's 3 ways to seam. Here's your your mattress stitch. Here's your whip stitch. And then here's your single or slip stitch. So there's 3 ways to do it that I just showed you. Let me see here. Busy Hooker says, you see the seam on those if you're the one that made it. To anyone else or the entrant eye, there's no seam. Yes, in some cases that is very true. But for those of us who, that don't like a visual, something like that, for granny squares, it's not a big deal for me, or blankets and things like that. I don't mind the whip stitch, but for garments, I'm definitely going to go with this one because I don't want to seam unless it's a design feature. And then I might do something like this where I have the same color and just have a visual line going through there. And then I just saw Marianne came in. So good morning, Marianne. Good to see you. It might be afternoon where you are, but I'm glad you're here. I was just teaching about seaming. So I think that's it. Does anybody have any questions for me? Anything else they want to talk about when it comes to seaming or anything else that we talked about here with the seams? It's pretty fun. It's pretty fun to learn different ways of seaming. But again, my purpose for this little mini lesson was to show you the mattress stitch. Oh, good. I'm glad, Aunt Ida, that you enjoyed this. I'm going to try to do this a little more often. It takes a little prep time, and I have to think about what I'm doing before I do it. So, but I'm glad that this information helps and gives you some good information. And Marianne, yes, I saw that. Yeah, watch the replay. Definitely watch the replay. So I'm not leaving so soon. No, I still have 10 minutes or so, or 8 minutes before I need to go. So if anybody's got questions on seaming or on anything else, let me know. If you want me to talk about anything else, it's a good time to do it. I have a few more minutes here. I'm gonna take some more coffee. Over the weekend, we had a small engagement party for my daughter, and it was in the 80s, and I'm still recovering my throat talking, even though it was on Saturday. It was just really hot. Let's see. You're welcome, Pat. You're welcome, Pat. I'm glad to share. And so if you guys ever have something that I can do a quick lesson like this that you'd like me to teach, let me know. I mean, I'm glad to prep something to do a little mini lesson like this. One of the things I am going to be doing, guys, is I'm going to be putting on my calendar this hopefully by the end of the week. But if not, by next Friday, which will be, let's see, today's the 21st, so that'll be the 30th, I guess. I'm looking at my calendar. I'm going to have some classes coming up online that are going to be like 90-minute classes, so on different topics. So if you're interested in classes on Zoom, let me know. And for those of you who keep asking me for the next crochet along, I think it's going to be in the fall. I think I already have the pattern picked out. I just have to clear it with the yarn company and the people I designed it for. So, but if they'll let me do it as a crochet along, and it'll probably be either mid-September or the 1st of October that I'll do it, just so you guys know. Let's see. I always feel like I'm pretty advanced crocheter until I come across streams or videos like yours. There are so many. Well, okay. You probably are an advanced crocheter. I would completely say that most people underestimate what type of a crocheter they are. I did a whole little talk about it so a few months ago on a live. I can't remember exactly when, but go back through my YouTubes and you probably see the one that I talked about. Are you a beginner, intermediate, or advanced? Most of my followers totally underestimate themselves. However, I've been crocheting since 1974. I was 7 years old, so now I've just dated myself. But I was 7 years old in 1974, and my grandmother taught me to crochet. She only spoke Italian, so I learned to crochet at her knee visually. No books. I take that back. We did use books, but we used a magnifying glass to figure out how to do the patterns. But then once I learned all these things like weaving in and seaming, how to do the different stitches and things like that. And when I taught myself to read patterns and started reading how-to books, I realized that my nonna taught me more than any book or any class. My mom did put me in a class. It was supposed to be a 4-week class to learn to crochet. And I only took one lesson because I was so far ahead of everybody else in that class. And I was only like 9 or 10 when she put me in that class. So, in fact, I did continue to go to the class, but what I did was I wasn't paying attention in class. The first day she had me pick out a pattern, and I literally made a baby sweater in 4 weeks as a 9 or 10-year-old for my cousin who was pregnant at the time. And she helped me read the pattern. That was it, learn anything that my grandmother may not have taught me. So it takes watching people who do live streams or who have been crocheting a long time to teach the tricks that you don't see in the books. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense, because that's kind of where it's at. Okay. Linda says, I saw the neatest gadget called the Winderful. You get spools that you attach to one end of an electric drill screwdriver, and you can wind this. Yes. A lot of the indie dyers have something like that. They might not be called the Winderful, but a lot of people do make skeins with a drill. It's really kind of cool. And you can also make decorative straps for like handbags and things like that by twisting nylon twine and stuff like that. So those are really, really cool. Okay, Busy Hooker says, oh, look for that video. Yeah, you just look at my, usually I have a synopsis of what I talked about in that video, especially on YouTube. So just look for the little synopsis, and I'll say something about talking about beginning, intermediate, advanced, and I talk about how to rate yourself. And most people, there are so many people who think they're beginners that are really intermediate or even advanced. So make sure you read that. Don't be afraid. That's why all my patterns now don't have a skill level on it, unless I'm required to by whoever I'm designing the pattern for, because I don't want you to be afraid to try anything. So, been around yarn arts my whole life, but only started learning like, yep. I hear that a lot too. A lot of people had their grandmothers who were crocheters, or even their moms who were crocheters, but they never really learned until they were either pregnant or recovering from some sort of injury and needed something to do. So yeah, I was one of those people who my grandmother, she told me that at 7 years old, I watched too much television. So she was a woman ahead of her time. So I learned to crochet, and I've been doing it ever since. I mean, I rarely put the hook down for more than maybe a month when I was in college or something. I mean, I decorated my dorm room, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. Let's see, Aunt Ida says, I've been crocheting since 2000. Considers myself advanced, but oh yes, absolutely. Even when you're advanced, I mean, I've been crocheting for over 40 years. It's going to be, let's see, I'm 47 years this year. I've been crocheting for 47 years, and I'm still learning. There are new techniques that keep coming out. There are new ways, magic circle. I mean, that's not something I learned in 74 when my grandmother was teaching me. It wasn't until the 2000s that became a thing that I've seen. So, I mean, for a long time, it was just me and my grandmother who I knew crocheted until the internet did that, opened my eyes to all the people out there who were actually crocheters. I'm always learning. I take classes when I can. A lot of times at live events, I can't take classes because I'm teaching at the same time as the class I want to teach. But now with the Zoom, I've been able to take a few classes and learning different things. So you might see some new things coming from me. let's see. I figured that it's only yarn. If I make a mistake, I can take it out and try it again. Exactly. It's yarn. And I recommend it with any technique, not just seaming, but any technique. You know, just make a swatch. Get some, you know, yarn that you're, you know, left over from another project, or buy some yarn that you just want to practice with. I know people who take stitch dictionaries and then go to Michael's or Hobby Lobby and they buy, you know, like a big skein of worsted weight yarn. Doesn't matter what brand, doesn't matter what color, and they just work their way through learning the stitches in their stitch dictionary. So there's all sorts of ways to learn. Let's see. I was a Navy wife in my first marriage, alone over half the year with no job, no school, no nothing. Yep. Yeah, there you go. There's a reason why you learn to crochet. There you go. And Aunt Ida, gonna go to lunch with a hubby. Oh, have a good rest of your day, Aunt Ida. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. I'm gonna, let's see, where are we time-wise? Oh, it's 10 o'clock. I'm just gonna bring up one more here. I love Zoom classes. Yes, I love Zoom classes. And it's really nice. I mean, I miss the live interaction. I miss being able to give my people hugs. You know, I miss going to events. But, oh, I should tell you guys, I don't know how many of you are on the West Coast or want to go to the West Coast, but I will be, actually, I don't know if I'll be teaching, but I will definitely be in the vendors market at Fiber Fusion Northwest. I'm going to put their website in the chat. fiberfusion.org. It is the, oh, I don't know why it just did it twice on Facebook, guys, so I apologize for that. It is a local event on the west side of the state. When I was living there, I literally could go vend in the market and then come home that night. This time I'm going to have to get a hotel and stay somewhere while I'm there. But it's the weekend of October 16th and 17th, 2021 at the Monroe Fairgrounds, the Evergreen State Fairgrounds. And it's a fiber event. So I will be there. So if any of you are on the West Coast who are watching this, either before or after, either live or during the replay, that's just something, it's already on my calendar on my website. I'll be sending out more information as I know what's going to happen at the event. But I'm really excited because it's the 10-year anniversary and I'm really excited to be there. So I'm going to go ahead and end off this video. So just as a reminder, if you're watching this as a replay, make sure you hit the subscribe button on Facebook or on YouTube or Rumble. And also if you're on Facebook, make sure you like my page or follow my page, or both would be great, so that you can learn when I'm going to be going live. As soon as this live's over, I'm going to be setting up the next live on Facebook. Facebook does not allow me to set up the lives more than a week ahead of time. So I'll be setting that up. So if you want to learn more about me, though, the best place to go is to my website at KarenWhooley.com. You see it here at the bottom. One thing I should mention, and I always forget to do this when I do these lives, is if you scroll all the way to the bottom of my webpage, you will see a link there that says About Karen, and then there's another one, My Story. If you want to learn how I learned how to crochet, or hear about how I learned to crochet, see my first projects, that kind of thing, go to that link, because that'll tell you a little bit more about my history with crochet. So I always forget that. And while you're on my website, make sure you subscribe to my newsletter. There's a link right here to go right to the subscribe link. And newsletter subscribers get a free pattern right off the bat and get free pattern every year on January 1st. And then you also get 25% off new pattern releases, specials when I release a new book. And don't forget, Simply Blankets is coming next week. So if you're not a subscriber, you might want to subscribe right now. And then you're always the first to know about what's coming up the pike. If you are not watching this on YouTube and want to follow me on YouTube, there's my YouTube channel. Definitely hit the subscribe button. And when you watch one of my videos, I would appreciate it if you give me a thumbs up there too, because that really helps get my videos be seen elsewhere. So I would love it if you would do that. If you're not watching this on Facebook, and you want to follow me on Facebook, this is my Facebook page. Facebook.com/Karen Whooley Official. That is my business page. I do have a personal page, I should mention, and I keep that for friends and family. All my crochet people follow me here at this page. You can also, where my most active social media is on Instagram, and you can find me at Karen Whooley with no space between my name. And if you are not watching this on Rumble, I also upload these to my Rumble channel, and this is the link to my Rumble channel. And I should mention, yesterday I uploaded a new video on Rumble and on YouTube. So if you haven't seen it, go check it out. And if you're interested in joining Rumble, this is my affiliate link. There's no cost to you to join Rumble, but I get a little bit that helps me keep my business running if you join Rumble using my link. So that's it for today. I'm going to go back to the comments and see what everybody's saying. Hi, Robin. Oh, yes. Are you thinking you're saying woohoo about Fiber Fusion? I'm really excited to be going back. So hopefully I'll see you there. Busy Hooker, have a great week. Pat, you have a good week too. I appreciate it. And Linda, if you know of a place, Linda, in Chicago that would like to have me come teach, let me know. So I know there's a guild in Chicago somewhere. So I've been wanting to come out and teach for them. So we'll see. Let's see. Thank you, Marianne, for being here. and Robin, I see you there with the yes. So for those of you who are here still, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Hope you have a great one. Talk to you soon.